It is my true privilege to be here with you at this critical juncture. As UN Secretary General Bambang mentioned, in just 10 days, world leaders will gather together in Paris to forge collective actions to climate change. And I believe it would be historical. Yes, we are on the road to Paris. And as the Vice Minister Kim said, it ain't over until it's over, and we may find out a momentum to say another goodbye to our ancient regime, this time to our old energy system in France, where real revolution took place some 200 years ago. Well, having said that horrible tragedy in Paris shocked and saddened the world. And before I begin, please allow me to express my deep condolences for Paris and the people of France. I pray for them. Ladies and gentlemen, I am most honored to moderate the opening plenary with such distinguished leaders. Each speaker will deliver a solo speech and then have brief Q&A interactions with me on behalf of the participants.
Distinguished speakers and panelists, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by expressing my thanks to Korea Advanced Institute for Science and Technology and Coalition for Our Common Future for inviting me to address this important climate energy conference. It is good to be here in Seoul. I have lost count how many times I have been to the Republic of Korea, the country where my father-in-law once served as Indonesian ambassador, and where my wife Ami spent her life's memorable years. I stand on this rostrum today in my capacity as chairman of GGGI. I am pleased to inform you that since its founding in 2012, GGGI has rapidly progressed to be a reputable champion for green growth. Thus, the Korean people should be proud that their country is the initiator and host of such a wonderful and impactful organization as GGGI. The theme of this climate energy conference is actually part of the 4 thematic priorities of GGGI, namely green city, energy, water, and land use. And the topic of this conference, on the road to Paris and the Green Big Bang, is spot on. Supply risen to around 35 billion tons, 6 times what it was over 6 decades ago. I cannot imagine carbon emission rising another 6 times in the next 6 decades. That is not the world I want my 3 grandchildren to live in. But in reality, this is what continues to happen. The last 18 years have witnessed the hottest 15 years ever recorded in the world. And the first 10 months of 2014 were the warmest on Earth since modern record-keeping began in 1880. A recent study by professors in UC Berkeley shows that the unmitigated climate change will shrink global economy by 23% in 2100. Climate change is indeed a security threat like no other. One indication that times are changing was reflected in one interesting poll by PEW, which found China and India fear climate change more than each other, which leads to the central question relating to this climate, energy conflicts. How do we adjust our energy needs for future climate economics? Energy use is still a predominant source of global carbon emissions, more so than industry, agriculture, transport, and others. Carbon emissions from fossil fuel use make up about 2/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions. In the next 15 years, the world energy demand is projected to grow by some 25 to 35%, as up to 3 billion people enter the global middle class and world economic output doubles. We should not aim to meet this surge in energy demand by producing more fossil fuels. I am aware that in the short term, this dependence on fossil fuel will continue, but clearly for the long term, renewable energy is the way to go. Here, development around the world prove that we have some cause for optimism on the prospect of renewables. For example, in 2013, for the first time, the world added more low-carbon electricity capacity than fossil fuels capacity. Significantly also, global economic growth and CO2 emissions are beginning to decouple. The global economy grew by 3% last year, but CO2 emissions did not rise. I also note that clean technology investment is surging in two promising ways. Each dollar invested in renewables today buys more capacity than ever. For example, $270 billion invested in renewables in 2014, about 36% more capacity than $279 billion spent in 2011, which is perhaps why sustainable companies have outperformed their peers by 9% over the past 4 years. Renewable energy is therefore the game changer in the climate economics. For example, Brazil, China, and the European Union, I should say the European Union, India, Indonesia, Japan, Mexico, and the United States together represent 65% of global energy demand. If these 8 economies follow through on their INDCs, or intended nationally determined contribution, the amount of clean energy on the grid will more than double by 2030. All these efforts serve as critical building blocks in the climate agreement that we hope will be finalized at COP21 this month. Our strategic goal, as specified under the Climate Change Convention, UNFCCC, is for all countries to work together. We have only 3 decades left to spend the remaining 1/3. In the past 21 years, climate negotiations have been characterized by strong participation of national interests. But at the COP21 in Paris, I hope all country delegates would go beyond national interests and think and act as one big human family, with the much needed will and imagination to answer the call of history to save our planet. The International Energy Agency estimates that to achieve a 2% pathway, annual investment in low-carbon power supply, solar, wind, hydropower, bioenergy, and nuclear as well as carbon capture and storage, we need to grow to an average of about $520 billion per year between 2014 and 2035. The developing countries, including the least developed countries, do care and do have the will to act. The GTGI Assembly and Council meeting yesterday, we heard delegates from Colombia, Ethiopia, Mongolia, Philippines, Nepal, Senegal, Uganda, and Indonesia, expressing strong interest and clear plan in a green future. But many of them lack of resources, know-how, technology, and finance. And they want to see COP21 producing a clear global climate agreement so that they can pursue low carbon development future with adequate support and predictability. Developed countries need to help the developing countries close this huge gap in finance so that all countries can low carbon development path. I understand that this figure would amount to annual financing of around $100 billion a year. Yes, it is a staggering sum, but it is a worthy investment in our common future. But developing countries can also do their part. Innovation, research, and development investment is not the monopoly of developing countries. There is plenty of space for the developing world as well. Here is where I commend Korea's leadership and innovations. Korea has become a pioneer in energy innovation. For example, you have made amazing advances in tidal technology, which could well be one of the game changers. I am told that your tidal wave power has been able to supply energy needs for small coastal towns. I hope you will be able to share this remarkable know-how with other nations. Archipelagic countries like Indonesia will have a lot of use for such tidal energy. One last point. Any ambitious plan to develop climate energy requires the expansion of public-private partnerships, PPP. Many local governments with limited resources are looking for alternative source of capital. And many companies are interested to partner with government. Yes, often the price is not right and the regulatory framework is unclear. There is no single one-size-fits-all there is no single one-size-fits-all model of PPP, which means they need to be creative in working out the right business models that suit their specific local conditions. If countries and cities can work out the right PPP, then I am sure that we will witness rapid growth of renewable energy worldwide. This will also impact on jobs, good jobs. Indeed, this is one area that GTGI has focused on. GTGI has done extensive studies in several developed and developing countries and concluded that the shift to clean energy will not only contribute to greener economy, it can actually generate considerable employment. Brazil, for example, focusing on green technology, especially the wind sector, can add nearly 500,000 jobs. For Indonesia, clean energy investment could lead to more than 8 million jobs. In Germany, employment in green technologies is already 2 million and counting. The same is also true for South Korea and South Africa to varying degrees. This, I believe, is only the tip of the iceberg, given that the business potential for green energy is simply limitless. Finally, let me say that green growth is both top-bottom and bottom-up process. We must see it both globally and nationally and locally. But all these levels can only work if we can make it work at the most basic level, which is in the household and the individual. If households around the world become climate conscious and embrace low carbon lifestyle in their daily activities, then we shall finally be able to save humanity and save our planet. I thank you.
I have two brief questions. First one is rather personal. I understand, as a very much respected leader in the world, you received many good offers from around the world when you finished the presidency. May we ask why you chose to be in charge of this Green Goals mission?
Well, firstly, I know the history of the establishment of TTTI. A couple of years ago, the then President Im Bak talked to me his ideas to establish this organization. And he asked me my support, and I gave him my full support to the establishment of TTTI. So when last year, Mr. Yudhoyono, the Director General of TTTI, asked me with the support of President Park Geun-hye, I accepted a job as President and Chairman of TTTI. And secondly, Professor Kim, I know well, after leading Indonesia for 10 years, Indonesia is a developing country, that things that is needed by all developing countries is, on the one hand, we could combat poverty, we could improve the welfare of the people, but on the other hand, we could preserve our environment. It means we need a new kind of economic model, and the answer is green growth. So, by this deep understanding of me, I finally accept this task to join TTTI to spread positive virus to all countries all over the world, especially developing countries as well as least developed countries, that we have to transform our economy, to transfer our development into low carbon path of development and of economic model. That's the story why I am pleased to join TTTI.
Thank you, Chairman. And the second question is related to the Paris meeting. There remains still some controversy or debate on the nature of the outcome of the Paris meeting. For example, according to the Financial Times, the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, I quote, "It is definitely not going to be a treaty. They are not going to be legally binding reduction target like Kyoto or something." Do we have your opinion on this?
Well,
Do you think it should be legally binding or not?
Firstly, because we are pleased that both the United States and China are on board now together with us to work together to combat climate change and global warming. That's good news, because if all the countries are working together, even all developed countries can take the lead, then our global effort in combating climate change will be more successful. Well, I have to say that it is very challenging to finally reach the agreement in Paris, but of course we all want that we could reach a legally binding international climate agreement in Paris. And as I have said, it's very challenging, it's not easy, but it is achievable. So there are many criteria if we want to see the success of Paris Conference. But number one, of course, if we could really reach the agreement. Number two, if all big countries, big polluters are on board with its INDCs. So we are sure that the global community can limit the rise of the temperature to 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial level. Other challenge, and we are hoping we could also have agreement in Paris, is the financing side, because rich countries must help poor countries by allocating, say, $100 billion annually. It's also a tough things that we need to negotiate in Paris. The third one is, of course, the commitment of all countries, developed and developing countries, to really achieve the overall target based on its INDCs. And last but not least, of course, after Paris, the most important one is the implementation.
Okay.
If all countries are implementing what we have agreed in Paris, that story will be different. That's my view.
Thank you, Chairman. So that in Paris, the top and bottom will meet together, and I understand we should produce an agreement with legal force. Am I right? Thank you, Chairman.
안녕하십니까 여러분, 좋은 아침입니다. 네. I just want to start by thanking the organizers here for a fantastic opportunity to speak today and recognize the incredible lineup of diplomats, former heads of state, international organization leaders. It is a star-studded, dramatic, dynamic group here today, and I think it befits the commitment that the world, the Republic of Korea, and the United States puts on this very important issue, as Professor Kim just outlined. Let me also thank HEIST and the Coalition for Our Common Future for hosting this second Seoul Climate Energy Conference. This conference does provide an unbelievably valuable forum for experts to meet, discuss climate change and energy issues, and to work on results, as we've clearly heard already today. And I feel like we really need to give the speech after the introduction. But look, I think the bottom line here is that precisely why the Obama administration has made this such a priority, precisely why the President, precisely why the Secretary of State care so deeply about this issue, is they recognize that this is one of the most important issues facing the world today. It's a threat not only to our health and environment, but also to our global security and our global economic development. And President Yudhoyono outlined this incredibly well in his remarks earlier today. We can see the effects of climate change already: floods, droughts, higher temperatures. And again, it's why this is such a deep and abiding priority for the United States government at this important time. Secretary Kerry has said that a key piece of climate change is really about making clean energy choices. It's an oversimplification, but with some truth, and this means really doing two things. One, choosing energy generation methods that produce less greenhouse gases, and two, improving energy efficiency. And to that end, the technologies that we heard a little bit about earlier are already here for us to do these two things. They include generating energy from renewable resources and using energy-efficient devices and appliances. And although some people are concerned that breaking free from the traditional ways of power generation will damage the economy, I believe, and experts agree, that clean energy should be viewed as a major economic opportunity, as we just heard in the Q&A. The current energy market is enormous, and the future clean energy market will continue to grow. And by adopting clean energy policies, countries will spur innovation, encourage entrepreneurs to move into the field of clean energy, driving economic growth while also helping on this critical issue. In turn, these innovators and entrepreneurs will help develop new technologies and refine those technologies we already have. And this energy market will be exciting and innovative, one we should embrace as a complement to the work we're doing as governments together. But also, as President Yudhoyono also clearly outlined, it will not be enough for some countries to take action while others stand by. We need a truly global approach. And to do so, we need a comprehensive climate change agreement in Paris this December. This new agreement must be ambitious, fair to all, and focused on reducing greenhouse gas emissions and addressing adaptation to climate change. And this is why the United States has been actively engaging our international partners, including and especially China, India, other European countries, represented by their ambassadors here today, including Denmark, Austria, Southeast Asian countries, African countries, to try to get everybody on board. It must also include strong accountability measures and ensure ongoing financial and technical support to those in need. It's also been discussed today. This is why the United States is a strong supporter of the Green Climate Fund that operates right here in Korea. This could be one of the most important international agreements in our lifetimes, and we have a truly unique opportunity. And I just cannot emphasize how important it is that we work together to continue the progress and to make progress on this important agreement in December. Also on the international front, I would be remiss that if I didn't point out that the United States is actively engaging the international community on not just the climate change negotiations, but also two very important priorities: HFCs and public financing of overseas coal power plants. HFCs, everybody here in the room knows what these are about. The United States is a strong proponent of phasing out the production and use of HFCs and finding suitable replacements. And ending public financing for inefficient overseas coal power plants is another top international priority. We are pleased by the OECD's announcement on Wednesday that member states have agreed to significantly curtail export credits for low-efficiency coal-fired plants and encourage both exporters and buyers towards high-efficiency technologies. This agreement includes a mechanism to further reduce public financing for coal plants as market develops and the technology improves. And I'm pleased to say that the Republic of Korea and the United States are both on board with this agreement. On the unilateral front, on the domestic front in the United States, it's noteworthy that President Obama in August announced the Clean Power Plan, which is a milestone achievement in how the United States is dealing with climate change domestically. It sets the first ever national carbon dioxide emission standards for existing power plants in the US. It also sets emission standards for new, modified, and reconstructed power plants. This plan will cut the power sector's carbon dioxide emissions by 32% below the 2005 levels, goal of getting there by 2013. Why is this important? In many respects, it's self-evident, but it's to state it clearly. It's because fossil fuel-fired power plants are by far the largest source of carbon dioxide emissions in the United States, and this plan addresses that issue. But we're not just focused in the United States on fossil fuel power plants. We're also looking at alternative sources of energy. Since President Obama took office, the United States has more than doubled electricity generation from wind, solar, and geothermal sources. And we are pushing to again double the electricity generated by these resources by 2020. Developing new clean energy technologies will require investment to spur innovation and entrepreneurship, circling back to the point I made at the top. And we are doing that by making available $4 billion in loan guarantees for innovative, renewable energy and energy-efficient technologies. And making clean energy choices is also about improving energy efficiency. The Obama administration has set the highest US fuel efficiency standards for passenger vehicles. These standards will double the fuel efficiency for these vehicles from 27 miles per gallon to 54 miles per gallon by 2025. But it's just not cars and automobiles that we're focused on. Our homes and business have been a priority for the Obama administration as well. We've set energy conservation standards for 29 categories of appliances and equipment, and we are looking at other areas where we can improve our performance. These are just a few of the steps we're taking domestically towards cleaner and more sustainable future, and our efforts, it complements our efforts on the international and of course bilateral front here in Korea. And I'm going to just close quickly about our bilateral collaboration with the government of Republic of Korea. During the October summit between President Obama and President Park, both leaders outlined newer areas of cooperation that they want to put a key strategic focus on, and climate change was one of those 5 new areas. They agreed, these two leaders agreed, that climate change is one of the greatest threats to global security and economic development, and both of our countries are committed to achieving long-term ambitious climate change agreement in Paris and to phase down the production and use of HFCs. We're also active partners in clean energy development. Our energy ministries work together to study and develop smart grids, microgrids, energy storage systems, and hydrogen and fuel cell technologies. And when our countries are actively exploring ways to develop and deploy these clean energies of the future, it's a good thing. Moreover, I would be remiss if I didn't point out some of the leadership changes here in Korea that evidence the strong support for this initiative. One has to look no further than former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo's appointment to an incredibly important and active organization to help bolster these efforts that our two governments are making, as well as our multilateral contribution. Our collaboration, finally, is also exemplified by the 25th anniversary of an ongoing project between the United States NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and the Korean Center for Atmospheric Environmental Research. This collaboration collects and analyzes atmospheric data to monitor atmospheric conditions and will help inform our understanding on climate change. In addition to what I just mentioned, President Yudhoyono also outlined many of the areas in which South Korea is a leader, and together, working unilaterally, bilaterally, and multilaterally, will continue to be a vital international partner in combating climate change. So to conclude, I just want to summarize by saying this is an incredibly important issue for the United States. There is some promising progress, lots of hard work ahead. We're going to continue to focus and make this a key priority. We have great partnerships here in the Republic of Korea, great partners around the world, and look forward to doing more together. So, 다시 한번 축하드립니다. 갑시다.
Thank you. To learn that the U.S. and Korea will enhance strategic cooperation on the green agenda, including clean energy and climate change. And thanks to your speech, we could gain better understanding what John Kerry tried to deliver in his interview. When I met him at the Davos Forum, I could feel he is a true green leader. And he even made the famous Kerry box legislation. What matters is that was not just passed by the Congress, but I know he's trying to really transform the world in much more greener way.
Hardly a day goes by without new findings pointing to the growing threat from climate change. As global temperatures continue to rise, at least without greenhouse gas emissions, we are already seeing a glimpse of troubling future. Rising seas, increasingly extreme weather events, food and water shortages, and species migration, and perhaps even our own. We need this news to remind us of the urgency of this matter. As the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change made clear in its latest fifth assessment report, unless we start to aggressively reduce and ultimately eliminate our emissions, people and ecosystems will face an increasing likelihood of severe, pervasive, and irreversible impacts. There's no saying that the necessity is the mother of invention. Since the dawn of the civilization, necessity has driven humankind in invent new ways to survive, and especially in more recent times, to thrive. There is no question that we have to prevent additional climate change. In the process, we can reshape and dramatically improve the way everyone on this planet lives and works. Just imagine a world in which affordable, reliable, and clean renewable energy that was available to everyone. According to the IEA, International Energy Agency, more than 1.3 billion people, nearly 20% of the world population, has no electricity. This information you all know already. And yet it is electricity that powers prosperity without it, poverty follows. Imagine a world in which we capture and safely store carbon. Also imagine a world in which we not only preserve our tremendous, magnificent forests, but actually planted new ones, creating rich, fertile new ecosystems in the process. It would be a greener, more prosperous world. It will break down the barriers between rich and poor countries and unite us in a common cause to save this precious planet. By tackling climate change, we can tackle poverty and build new wealth. This is a very important point that new IPCC will deliver during the next cycle of assessment. We frequently hear that such a transition would be too expensive. It would not. The IPCC has shown that ambitious mitigation would delay expected economic growth by only 1.5 years by the year 2050. And that estimate leaves out two very important factors. It does not include the cost of inaction. It also does not account for the benefit of reduced climate change or the co-benefits of mitigation. That means it does not include improved human health from cleaner air, biodiversity conservation, water availability, and food security. It does not include the benefits of a more secure and resilient energy supply and sustainability for the growth of developing countries. And it does not include employment gains in this process. In other words, building a low-carbon world where we stabilize the climate involves the sharing of these new opportunities. IPCC has also detailed the obstacles to building this new economy. We are not blind to the barriers to approaching these new pathways. There are numerous institutional barriers. We need technological breakthroughs to make carbon capture and more viable and environmentally safe. And above all, we need more rational energy markets. No one would expect the garbage from his or her home to be taken away and properly disposed for free. We expect to pay for such a vital service. Yet in many cases, we are still able to discard our climate pollution for free. It's no wonder that atmospheric concentrations of CO2, methane, nitrous oxide are at their highest levels in at least 800,000 years. It is no wonder that CO2 concentrations have increased 40% since pre-industrial times, thanks primarily due to fossil fuel emissions. It's because there's no direct payment for our greenhouse gas emissions. This is the definition of an irrational market, a broken, dysfunctional market. That is why one of the options the IPCC has proposed is global price on carbon. And it is not just the energy economists who are calling for such a price on carbon. A growing number of companies, I must tell you that growing number of companies, including the energy companies, are calling for carbon taxes. They recognize that irrational markets are inherently unstable, and in the case of energy, distort the entire global economy. A price on carbon will create the incentives for the new technology that will create the world of new opportunities. We cannot tell that new technologies will be available in 10 years' time. What we can say is that the economy of a low-carbon world will be very different to the one we have today. We cannot extrapolate the high emissions economy of today indefinitely into the future. We can fix the markets just as we can fix our emissions. We have solutions. The challenge is to harness them in time to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. I'm confident that we can do that. I must say that the world with the business as usual will be totally different from the world with stabilized climate. It is clear that which world you want to choose. Should I say that the choice is yours? And you need to make that choice today, not 2 decades from now. And I must say that the one who chooses the climate resilient pathway will be a very clear winner in the coming centuries of low-carbon, sustainable economy. With this word, I want to conclude my brief address. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very important gathering. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, some climate policy experts are saying we need to rethink and move away from the focus on 2 degrees Celsius target simply because it is not achievable. Even if we do our best, we cannot make the target to be realized. And to my knowledge, the target itself, 2 degree target, was not come from the IPCC itself. So as the new head of the IPCC, may we have your opinion on the 2 degrees Celsius target?
Thank you. As you said,
rather than sticking to the target, Professor Victor is proposing that we need to focus on what can be really achievable rather than having false hope. Yes.
Thank you. As you said, the 2 degrees C target is political. It's a political decision. Although there were a great deal of scientific literature indicating that the temperature going above 2 degrees C, there will be a tremendously worrisome effect on the global ecosystems and also the human economic systems. Now, there are 2 questions really related to 2 degrees C. One is it adequate for the global climate stabilization? And the second question is, can we achieve that 2 degrees C stabilization given our current indication of INDC? Now, about the adequacy of 2 degrees C, I believe that the UNFCCC will continue to look into that adequacy questions. And as you know, there are already a call for looking into the option of 1.5 degrees C. And scientists in general look into that 1.5 degree option in a very, very serious way. However, so far, scientific literature is very slim about the possibility of achieving 1.5 degrees C climate stabilization. And in the IPCC assessment report, we analyzed about 1,200 scenarios, and the result of the scenario indicates that 1.5 degrees C stabilization means that we do need a substantial negative emissions by the end of the century. By the negative emissions, we require what is known as a bioenergy at CCS. It's currently not available, and we are not sure whether that technology will be viable in the coming years. But as you know, what analysts are lacking in their capability is project and analyze the technology future. And so at this time, it is very unfair to say that such a technology will not be available or will be questionable. We currently try to understand the meaning of this 1.5 degrees C option. And regarding the attainability of 2 degrees C, the UNFCCC already indicated that the 2.7 degrees C is the probable outcome given this current INDCs. And there are many other organizations also analyzing the implications of the INDCs. And at this time, we expect that someone needs to do the assessment of INDC. And IPCC has been requested by many governments that we should carry out that assessment of assessments. And we haven't decided about that, and we will meet in April next year to exactly decide what to do about this aggregate, meaning of aggregate of IDC and evaluation of achievability to degree C stabilization. And not really, we will not say anything about the attainability of degree C stabilization.
Because IPCC is a policy-neutral organization. Second question is about the outcome of the Paris meeting. Are we going to produce an agreement with legal force? Are you in favor of an agreement which can have legal force or legal obligation?
I know that there are many parties who call for legally binding measures, and also I know that there are many parties who are opposed to it. And I think that that question is a political question, and IPCC as an assessment body is not in the position of either or favoring or disfavoring or not favoring of such measures. However, I think the crux of the matter is how do you discourage free riders? And my question is legally binding measures appropriate to discourage free riders? Now, from that angle, I have many questions whether such measures can really discourage free riders. It may encourage free riders. And the tricky question is, the tricky part of this whole process is, you want to achieve two things. One is you want to increase the number of participating countries in this coalition, grand coalition. But at the same time, you want to reduce your emissions in total as much as possible. Now, these two things may not go together. And in this process, the legally binding measures may serve one element of these two pillars, but also it may damage greatly about how to address the free rider problems. Whole question of Paris Convention and thereafter will really seriously deal with these problems of free rider questions.
Yes, but there are some experts also who explain the reason of the failure of the Copenhagen meeting was they stick too much to the legally bindingness. Well, these days we are producing kind of bottom-up approach known as INDC. So instead of sticking to legally binding approach, pledge and review can be an alternative. What about your opinion on this?
Pledge and review is very similar to the current approach of INDC.
Yes.
And I think this is one way of achieving the grand goal of climate stabilization. The second assessment of IPCC clearly indicates that, it's a long time ago, but clearly indicates that in a world of uncertainty, the rational action is to first act and then learn from the developments of his or her own action, and then adjust his behavior according to this new information, and then learn again. So I think this pledge and review, or INDC, is exactly, I believe, the most appropriate way to address climate change problems in this time of the uncertain future.
Jeju has promoted green big bang strategies to increase synergies such as electric vehicles, energy storage, renewable energy, smart grid, and so on. Carbon-free island, Jeju, is a vision that can capture all these strategies. All vehicles will be changed with electric vehicles, and 100% of electricity will be replaced by clean energy. This means that electricity will be generated from Jeju's clean wind, and vehicles will be run on electricity. And smart grid technology will be widely utilized in smart homes, smart towns, and smart cities. When the Jeju Green Big Bang strategy kicks into gear, it will be a growth engine for the next generation, much as shipbuilding, oil refining, and vehicles were in the past. Now, electric vehicle is leading this strategy. Jeju is the region that is fastest in popularizing and commercializing electric vehicles in the world. Electric vehicles are already instruments of everyday life, and about 3,000 electric vehicles, half of the nation. It means whole Korea's EV supplies on Jeju at the end of this year. Next year, we aim to supply 4,000 EVs, half of Korea government's supply plan. On August 15, I began using as EV as an official vehicle, number one vehicle. It was very quiet and comfortable. The original purpose was to promote the EV industry, but I found EV rather suitable for business purpose and will produce a great amount of consumer report from Jeju. In the meantime, we have progressed a variety of business, such as the Jeju International EV Expo, EV supply, electric car battery leasing business, private toll charging service in Jeju. As it is shown in electric vehicle statistics and related businesses, electric vehicle is a key policy to lead related industry in Jeju. Jeju's ultimate goal is to create a world-class EV certification center as well as a test bed. This means constructing a base for EVs where all infra tests and related industries needed for EVs, such as EV battery charging and inspection and others, are tested on Jeju with the results shared with the world. If an EV is used, it has an effect of reducing 2.4 tons of carbon dioxide a year and planting 17 pine trees every year. To protect the clean environmental value of Jeju, I think we must further activate the EVs in Jeju Island by testing. In October last year, we signed a memorandum of understanding for the promotion of global eco-platform Jeju with Korea Electric Power Corporation, KEPCO, and LG, the leading company in the battery producing industry. This is a huge project with a total cost of 3 trillion won and the generation of approximately 50,000 jobs. We have formulated a specific plan to realize vision of carbon-free island projects. We are planning to stably integrate large-scale wind power into the system and introduce a base power generation of energy storage system and new renewable energy for the expansion of marginal capacity. For converting all the 370,000 vehicles in Jeju to electric vehicles, we will construct charging infrastructures in entire Jeju Island by 2017. The utilization of demand resource and efficient energy management plan of smart grid technology will also be formulated. There are many overseas cities, islands, and desert areas that require distributed self-energy. When the South Korea and North Korea are unified, there is a need to resolve the electrical problems of North Korea. I think that it's impossible to create a centralized power grid. So, distributed self-energy would change the civilization of mankind and the destiny of the North and South of Korea. In that respect, Jeju will be a testbed of the new energy industry in Korea. Actually, there are many problems to achieve these challenging objectives. To supply EVs, we need huge amount of subsidies. We will overcome limits of the power system to significantly expand renewable energy and improve EV charging infrastructure. And we also need to technical stability and economic feasibility to realize them. I think that Green Big Bang is the way to overcome these limitations. Through the successful diffusion of Green Big Bang model, we will be able to create new economic value from renewable energy and 100% supply of EVs. The issues of climate and energy are problems to be solved and tackled alongside the cooperation of global community. The Korean government also highly appreciates the vision of Jeju carbon-free island, Jeju by 2030, and the Green Big Bang strategy. I think the model of green growth and sustainable development presented by Jeju will be the key. Therefore, we are pushing forward, relating policies and projects with greater responsibility. We will assign 100 billion won for the supply of EVs in the next year budget. It is very huge budget of a single business in the local government, but we are still hungry. For this, we will arrange a political support package to support the generation of early resource by making full use of the advantages of the special right of autonomy, such as deregulation, simplification of administration, and more. In addition, henceforth we will play a leading role in national unit policies and enactment. We will carry out the leading role to continuously diffuse Green Big Bang model. The Green Big Bang will lead Jeju to be a treasure island of the world. Jeju Green Big Bang industry is not only Jeju industry. This is an excellent value industry leading Korea's next generation to their means of living. The related effects are in every direction, and they will be great by promoting diverse related industries. This can be a new ecosystem of the creative economy. We'll generate a new revenue model and will present standards of global new energy industries beyond Korea. By focusing on Jeju's special 1% future value, not looking only at its 1% population of Korea and land of Korea, Korea will be changed into, and so will the world. Jeju will cooperate closely in the efforts of the world to solve climate and energy problems now and forever. In addition, and finally, I hope that the collective wisdom gathered through the conference will lead to the successful COP21 on the UNFCCC on December. Thank you.
It's really amazing that not just in theory, but also in practice, you are realizing the Green Big Bang revolution in Jeju Island. If successfully done, the Jeju case will be a model for the future energy system, not just for Korea and for the world, I believe. But to realize this, Jeju seems to need much more support from the central government and much more engagement from the private sector. What are most needed to realize your Green Big Bang vision in a much more faster fashion?
As all of you know, the market is not mature enough, and the price driving force is not low enough, and Jeju budget is not enough. So the financial support and the encouraging policies are essential to less this policies and visions and make it real. And fortunately, the Korean government is very, very active and very, very longing for make out some success story or small but quick win. So the site will be Jeju, because Jeju is small enough to produce a small but quick win in very, very near future, and will enhance and will spread out to the other parts of Korea and other parts of the world. And these days, the companies are coming to Jeju Island to set up some special purpose companies such as LG and Korea Electric Power Chemical is getting together to make some special purpose cooperation body to accelerate the construction of the infrastructure of electric vehicle battery charging or some other related businesses, and the secure the electric power capacity of the total entire the grid scale. So next year, the LG and KEPCO and Jeju local government will face on some very, very specific business plan and investment plan. So I expect next year I'll give all of you the very concrete number and achievements until that time.
We will look forward to seeing that. I understand you are going to Paris and attend the COP meeting. May we know your plan in more detail?
Yeah. A couple of weeks later, including me, some of the delegations of the Jeju government and the Korean government will attend the Paris meeting. And there, the Jeju government will have some sessions. First, we will hold some sessions in Korea Pavilion, and we are expected to present experiences and our policies and visions of carbon-free 2030 of Jeju. And the theme of session is Jeju, Green Big Bang Global Showcase. And Jeju's Green Big Bang strategy is going to be introduced and set into the debate or talk. And second, the Jeju government is invited to an event hosted by ICLE. The theme of the session is 100% renewable energy cities and Jeju is selected one of the cities. So I will attend the session and I'm going to introduce the Jeju case. And lastly, at the GGGI's launching event, where Excellency Yudhoyono is chairing the council, Jeju will be announced as the host city of Global Green Growth Week 2016 next year.